Hi everyone, thank you for joining our webinar today. So my name is Hadar and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Bringg. And what we will go through today on this webinar is some tips and best practices for dispatchers, how we can use the dispatching dashboard on the web, how we can use the dispatcher app, the mobile dispatcher app that we have released recently, and some other best practices of how to manage your day-to-day work, how to manage your drivers, your orders. We will go into all of that during this webinar. Just so you know, the webinar will be recorded, and in a day or two you will probably receive an email from us with the recorded version of the webinar. It will also be available on our YouTube channel and on our website. Just so you know, you can type your questions on the right-hand side on your GoToWebinar panel. There is a window for questions. You can type all your questions there, and I will make sure to leave time at the end to answer as many questions as possible. So I will not stop as I go for questions. Feel free to type them in as I go. Great. So just to get started, and since I know that some of the people here are already using Bringg today, and some of you might be new or don't even know much about Bringg, I will start with a brief overview of what this is, what Bringg is, and what is it that we do. And from there, we will dive into the dashboard and into the tips that I have for you today. So let's start with the general. Bringg is a cloud-based platform that allows you to manage your teams and your orders when you have people on the move. So when you have drivers, delivery people, technicians on the move. And basically what we provide is both a frictionless logistics and management experience for dispatchers and managers, and also a great customer experience for your customers. So basically our ecosystem, or what we can see here on the screen, has three main players, three main components. First one being the management dashboard. That's the laptop you see in the middle of the screen right now. And this is what we will look at most of the time today during our webinar. Second player is, of course, the driver or the technician or the delivery person, the person you have outside on the field going and bringing something or some service to your customer. So the driver, or I will just refer to the people on the field as drivers today. So the driver gets a mobile app, either iOS or Android, to download to their phone. And that's where they can manage all their tasks for the day, receive new orders, accept new orders, etc. And we will see that happening today as well. And the third and very important player is the customer. Now, the customer on Bringg doesn't necessarily have to download anything. All of our experience, our out-of-the-box experience, is web-based as well. So your customers will not really need to download anything. And again, we will see that in just a few seconds. Of course, some of you might have an app that you work with, and then the entire experience can be part of the app that you're providing your customers. So just to kind of complete the bigger picture before we dive into what dispatchers do with the system, I would just like to show what one specific order looks like. So it will be a sushi order for this example, but it can be anything else. So if you have a fleet of technicians going on demand to your customers, if you have a fleet of doctors or nurses going to your customers, it all works pretty much the same. So an order obviously starts with the customer placing an order. So the customer, again, really depends on how you operate today. The customer places an order either through your website, your mobile native app, on the phone, through a text message. Again, depending on how you operate today. When the customer places an order, it arrives to the management dashboard. On the management dashboard, you will see all your drivers and all your orders. I don't want to go into that right now because just in 1 second we will jump into a live environment and see all of this, not as a presentation but in real life and what it looks like. As soon as the order was placed and arrives to the management dashboard, it is now dispatched to a driver. Now, as some of you already know, we have three ways of dispatching orders to drivers. First one, obviously, is manual. A dispatcher sitting in front of the computer and just deciding this order goes to John and this order goes to Mary, and that's how the decision is made. We also offer automatic dispatching. That means that every order that is placed, we, meaning the system, selects out of all your drivers that are on shift, the most suitable driver to carry the order, and this driver will be assigned the order. Now, if you use automatic dispatching, you should know that your driver will get an alert and will have 90 seconds to respond to this alert, to accept the order before it is dispatched to someone else. And the third way we offer for dispatching is something we call grab mode. Grab mode means that every time a new order is placed and entered to your system, all of the drivers that are on shift get an alert, and the first one to grab the order will take it. So all of the drivers will see it, but once the first one accepts, the others can no longer take this order. So either of the ways you used, if either of the dispatching methods you use today, at the end of it, the driver will get this push notification or this in-app notification saying that a new order was assigned to him or her, and he now needs to accept or dismiss it. It is important for you dispatchers to have this stage with the driver so you know that the driver actually saw this order and is really going to deliver it. Otherwise, of course, there is a problem and you need to handle it as dispatchers. So now the order is added to the driver's list, and the driver can see all the details, of course. The driver can navigate or call the customer or message the customer, and once he is ready or she is ready to go, they would click "I'm on my way." And this message will do two things. One, it will let you know on the dispatching dashboard that this driver is now active, so it will appear as blue, and that this order is now active and on the way. And again, we will see that in our live environment in just 1 minute. What it also does, once the driver clicks Start Order, a text message will be triggered to the customer saying that the delivery is on the way and providing a link to track the driver in real time. Now, this is the customer experience we've been talking about, and this is the great value of the Bringg system, that your customers, once the driver is heading their way, they can track your driver's location, they can know the exact time of arrival according to the driver's location and speed, and they can even contact the driver. So the customer is now tracking the driver, and just to complete, oh, sorry about that. And just to complete the flow, when the driver arrives to the customer location, they can add a photo, they click Arrived, the customer gets a notification that the driver has arrived, and they can click Left Location, and that would complete the order. When the order is completed, the customer gets an opportunity to rate the service as well. So this is a flow of an order, very, very high level. Now, as all of you who already use Bringg or that have heard of us even just a little bit know, that we have a lot of different configurations that you can set up on your account. So for example, you could now note that I show that the customer can call the driver, but on your account or in your business, this is not allowed. So some businesses chose to, instead of allowing the customer to call the driver, some businesses chose to allow the customer to only call the business. So when the customer clicks here on that phone, she will not get to Michael Harrison, the driver. She will get to the back office, meaning to you. And this is you are the people that the customer will now ask what's going on with the order or give any sort of notes about the order. Also, maybe in your case, the driver cannot call the customer. So all of those configurations, again, all of them apply. And I will relate today to the general case, but of course, any different settings that you or your admins chose to apply in your specific environment might mean that you need to make some small changes from what I say right now. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask me so I can relate to that at the end of the presentation. Great, so now that we're all on the same page regarding the flow and the bigger picture, let's dive into what a dispatcher does during the day. So this is my live environment for today, and it's basically simulating for me, let's say the middle of the day or maybe the beginning of the day, and I see what's going on my account. So basically what the dispatching dashboard allows you to do is first of all, see what's going on right now, where your drivers are, what they do, how many orders you have, what their status, and we will see different ways to take a quick look at that and handle issues quickly. And on top of that, it also allows you to give great customer service to your customers during deliveries and after deliveries. So just a quick note before starting to look into the features. I know that we have some participants here that their privilege on Bringg is admin and some are dispatchers. For this specific webinar, everything we're going to see is available for both dispatchers and admins, but I do want to stress the difference between the two because we will touch upon that during the presentation. So an admin basically has access to everything on the account. That means all of the different drivers, all the different orders, all of the teams, and the settings that you can see right here. A dispatcher, on the other hand, only has access to some of the features. Now, I mentioned briefly Teams. So Teams is another small point that I would like to stop on before going into what's going on in my dashboard right now. So some of you might be using Teams already. Teams are a way to break your account into smaller groups. This is very useful, for example, if you operate in more than one city, or if you have more than one store that you deliver for, or if you want to separate your technicians based on what they can do, if you want to separate electricians from plumbers, from TV installation people. So in that case, you would break your account into teams, and each team can have a dispatcher. So let's take a scenario, for example. Let's say I own a pizza chain, and I have 3 stores in 3 different cities. So I would create 3 different teams, each one for each city, and obviously each driver would belong only to one team because each driver delivers only in one city. I would also want a manager for each store, but I don't want the managers to be able to see what's going on in the other stores because it will just make irrelevant noise while they do need to just manage their own team. So I would have a dispatcher assigned to each of those stores, and that dispatcher would be able to manage only his or her drivers and only his or her orders. In addition, you can have a driver assigned to more than one team. So for example, if it's not different cities, just different stores, but some drivers deliver for 2 out of the 3. So each of those drivers can be assigned to 2 different stores, for example. But basically what it means is that you as dispatchers, if you are a dispatcher for just one team, you will only be able to manage your team. If you are an admin like I am right here, I can see all of my teams, or I can select just one. If I select just one team, I can see only the orders and drivers for that team. So for example, for Hadar's team 1, there is only just one order at the moment and no drivers. But if I switch to Hadar team 2, I have 3 orders and 1 driver. So that's a little bit about the difference between dispatchers and admins. And now we can take a look into what we can do with the dashboard, what we can learn about our business, about our drivers, about our orders. So let's start with the drivers. The dashboard lets you know in real time what's going on with your drivers. So first of all, you can see on the map that you can find your driver's location. And I see that my driver just dropped from the map, and that leads me to my second important point. A really important thing that you can see about your drivers is A, whether they are on shift or off shift, and B, whether they are online or offline. And I will stop on that because this is very, very important. On shift is an action that the driver needs to do when they start their day. So on shift is basically a button in the Bringg mobile app that the driver needs to slide in order to let you know that he's on shift or she's on shift. If the driver doesn't slide that button at the beginning of the day, they will not get any orders, whether it is manually dispatched, automatically dispatched, or grab mode. They're basically off the grid. So first and most important thing to do is to make sure your drivers are on shift. So how would I do that? I would go right here to the on shift drop-down menu, and I would see which of my drivers are on shift, and more importantly, which of my drivers are off shift. So I take a look at when I start the day, I would take a look at my off shift driver and say, hold on, should Hadar be working today or not? And if she is, today, let's say she is today, if she is supposed to be working, I would give her a call and say, you know what, you didn't start your shift, and maybe you should do that on the Bringg app. So that's the first thing to check, whether all of your off-shift drivers are really on a day off. So maybe driver 2 is off today, but Hadar should be on. Next thing is online versus offline. So even if your driver did start their shift, they might not be connected. And when I say connected, I mean three things mainly. One, they have to be in a place with cellular reception, obviously. Two, they have to have internet access. And three, they have to have their GPS on. If any of those is not currently happening, your drivers would be offline, as we call it. So the next thing I would look at after checking the on and off shift status, I would go to online and offline. So the most interesting part, in my opinion, is this, on shift and offline. On shift and offline basically gives you the list of drivers that think they are connected, but they are not. And what you need to do with those drivers is, again, give them a call or text them and make sure they have all three things on. So reception, internet access, and GPS. If they don't, they will not be online, and they will not get any tasks dispatched to them. So I'm doing good because everyone that needs to be on shift today is Jane, and Jane is also online. So that's great, and I'm in good shape, and I can start my day. Next thing I can see is what's going on with this driver. So I see Jane is on shift. That's great. She's online. She's also checked in. That means she's currently at a customer's. So one of her orders, and we will see that in a second, she already arrived there. I can also see her battery status, and that's very important because when a driver's battery goes too low, let's say below 15%, you would get an alert right here on this bell, letting you know that the driver is about to go offline, or, I mean, it means offline, but basically the phone is going to die. And maybe you want to alert your driver about that as well. Other things I can see where Jane is. So I just click locate, and the map centralizes around Jane's location. I can see her tasks and see their status. So I see that this task is on the way. That means she started but hasn't arrived yet. And this one is checked in. That means she started and arrived. And I can see this one is late or about to be late. So yeah, time here is 6:25, I think, right now. So 6:20 is already passed. And that's why the order is red and about to be late. And not about to, it's already late. Last thing about your drivers, so this is the driver status that we saw. And last thing about your drivers is that you can add or edit drivers. And this will be done from the drivers tab. So I go to drivers, and I can add a new driver from right here. So I just click on add driver. I enter the driver name. I can select whether I want the driver to log in using his or her phone number or email and password. I usually recommend using phone number just because it's easier for the drivers. They don't need to remember any password because the password will be sent to them in a text message. So very, very simple procedure for adding a driver. You can also upload a picture. And let's say one of your drivers say, you know what, I changed my phone number, or I'm starting to use bicycle instead of car. Any change you need to make, I would just go to that driver and click edit right here. And let's say my driver now needs to change to add phone number. So she only had an email address. Now she has phone number, or she switched from a car or a motorcycle to a bicycle, and I want to change that. So all the changes you can do from here, and click save, of course, at the end. So I'm going back to the dispatch screen, and let's see what we can tell from our dispatch screen about our orders. So if you remember, we were before looking at the map view. The map view has both a list and a map for you to see, and the list of drivers. Now, some of the details are easier to see on the map view. Like, for example, if you want to see the driver's location and the task location, if you need a map, then you can see a map. You can also drag it up to make it bigger. And I want to take a look at the list view for a second. So first of all, we can see that we have 2 orders late. Now, an order will be marked red, so late, either when it is already late or also when it is about to be late. So what does it mean about to be late? And that's very important because you as dispatchers should know if an order is going to be late before it's too late, obviously. So about to be late would happen if, first of all, if the order is due in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I think, and is not assigned to anyone. So yeah, 20 minutes and not assigned to anyone, you would get an alert telling you as a dispatcher, this order should be delivered very, very soon and no one took it. So that's, for example, this case. So this order is not assigned to anyone. You can see it if you hover on the status dot right here. And well, the due time is passed, but even if it was later than now, since it's not assigned and it's too close, it would be marked as late. An order can also be marked as late if it is assigned to a driver, but we see that the driver is too far to make it on time. And of course, if the time is passed, it will already be red. So this is why we have those two marked as late and the others aren't. We also can see the status of the order. So we can see that by hovering on the status dot right here. So orders that are active, meaning either on the way or checked in, would be blue. Orders that are assigned and accepted but not on the way would be green. And orders that are not assigned would be gray. So those are the orders you need to handle somehow. So I can see that this one is checked in, as we saw before, and this one is on the way. So it was started but not arrived yet. Other things that you can do. So as we said, there were 3 methods of dispatching. One is manual, the other is automatic, and the third is grab mode. In any of those cases, you can override the decision the system made. So let's say I have automatic dispatching, but I want to assign it to someone else for any reason. Or I don't have automatic dispatching and I see those 2 are unassigned and I need to assign them to someone. So I can just click on them, choose the driver I want to assign them to, and that's it. They're assigned. A few other things that I want to show here is once you're on the list view, you can view orders also grouped by either driver, team, or team and driver. So let's go for team and driver. And I see my team 1, and I see I have only 1 driver on team 1 and 1 order on team 1. You can also see team 2. Basically, it's a very nice way, very easy way to take a look at what's going on in a more organized way. And if I just want to see what's going on with the DAR, I will fold everything else and see only that. What the list view allows you to do in addition is bulk actions. So let's say I want to take these two and assign them to someone else. So I choose both of them and I assign them to driver 2, for example. And it's done. Now, you can also cancel orders from here, but this is important, lock and unlock orders. So if you're just one dispatcher sitting in front of the dashboard, all good. But if you have 2 people sitting in front of the dashboard working constantly, and I want to make changes now to this order, and I want to make sure that my colleague doesn't make changes at the same time. So I would just lock the order and make changes as long as it's locked. That means no one else can work and change this task while I'm working. So you avoid conflicts. So let's see what changes I can make to an order. So I click on the order ID, and now I see the order page. You can see here that I can make some changes. So I can update the prices from right here, and I can make changes to the address, to the customer name, or to the due time. Now that's important for many reasons. You would sometimes see that orders arrive with an address that is not recognized. You would see that by a orange mark next to the order, no, next to the address, sorry, on the order list. If you see such a mark, that means the address was entered incorrectly and is not recognized by Google Maps, which is the map we are using. And in that case, all you can do is just enter here and change the address. Another reason why you would need to do that is that maybe the customer called and said, you know what, I made a mistake. I entered 252 73rd, but it's actually 258. So I just make a change and I click update. And it's changed. Now, a few other things since we are already looking at this page of the order. So when you look at an order, you can see exactly what's going on with this order. So you can see when it is scheduled to, and you can see all different details about it. So let's pick an order that is started already. So I'm going back to the dispatch screen, and I'll take the order that is checked in. So that's order number 4. When I look at this order, I can see that the driver is Jane, as we saw before. I can see that it was started at 5:17. It is now checked in. I can see the scheduled time is 7:30. The check-in time is 5:57, and the ETL is calculated by the scheduled time, but basically once the driver leaves, we will get a timestamp here of left. We can also see the driver's location. So last thing I want to show before we go into customer service, as I said before, is this alert bell right here. The alert bell basically tells you very, very important things about what's going on with your orders. So for example, I can see here they have an order that was not accepted yet, and I guess it's about to be late. Driver didn't receive real-time alerts, so I can expand this screen and see all the different details. So, for example, this alert telling me that Jane, my driver, is staying too long at the customer. So I would want to see that. Maybe something happened. Maybe I should contact either the customer or the driver if the driver is spending too long there. I can see that I assigned an order to driver 2, but the driver didn't log in. So basically you get all of those real-time alerts to here. You also see an alert here if an order is about to be late, like in this case, or if a driver, as we said, is losing battery, or if a driver is losing connection. So you'll get all of these alerts right here, and I highly recommend checking it every time it goes off, and also dismissing the alerts that you checked and acted upon, because once you dismiss all of them, as long as you have alerts here, the bell will still show. And if you dismiss alerts, then the bell will pop up only when you have an alert. But again, up to you. You have those alerts, and you can act upon them. So going into customer support real quick, the dispatching dashboard, the management dashboard, is a great tool not only for managing the ongoing work, it's also great for managing your customer service or customer support. So if a customer calls in, whether it is while she's waiting for a delivery or after the delivery was made, and asks what happened, or says, the driver didn't show up, or I've been waiting for too long, you basically have all the details in the History tab. So I'm going to the History tab, and we'll see here order number 1 that was completed by Jane earlier today. And basically, if I enter this order and take a look at it, I can see everything that I need to know in order to give service to my customer. So I know when the order was scheduled for, when it was started, exactly when the driver arrived and when the driver left. And I can also see exactly the route that the driver took and play it. So I'll do that. So basically, I really see where the driver is going. And I will also see here, so in this case, we didn't have a phone number, so there was no alert. But I will also see here when the alert was sent to the customer and whether it was viewed or not. And that's very helpful for you when you talk to your customers. If the driver added a signature or a picture or any proof of delivery that you recommend, it will also appear right here below the address. So basically, if a customer calls in and asks any question about the order, you just find the order and you have all the details right in front of you, real life details, without needing to ask the driver. And we find that this is something that saves a lot of time and trouble for dispatchers. So the last thing I want to show today is our dispatcher app, the mobile dispatcher app that we launched pretty recently. So let me just connect my mobile phone. So let's see. So the dispatcher app basically shows me part of what the dashboard shows. It's more aimed for managers or dispatchers that are on the go during the day, and it allows you to have a view into what's going on now. So not so much the customer service part, but more the day-to-day management. It lets you know what's going on now and what you need to take care of right now, and in a very, very simple form. So we can see here the list of active orders, just as they were on the dispatch tab. And I can see their status color-coded. So I see a late order. I can see the color code if I click on this I here. So let me load the page for a second. So I can see here the color legend. So basically, I can tell that these two orders were created but not assigned. This one is checked in. This one is on the way. And if I click on an order, I can also see all the details within the order. So I see who it is assigned to. I can see the status, the address. I can see notes if I had any. So if you have on your tasks, if you have, let's say, the order details, you would see them right here. Of course, all the timestamps and everything. And the last thing you need to know, so one is what orders you have and what's their status, as usual. And two is where your drivers are. So if I click on drivers, I can see where my drivers are. So right now I only have one connected, but if I had more, the map would scale and the map would be smaller, sorry, and show me more drivers. Now, just as we saw on the dispatching dashboard, so on the web dashboard, we saw the on-shift online as a drop-down menu. On the dispatcher app, we just see the drivers in colors. So online, we will only see on-shift drivers on the map, that's first. Online drivers would be green, and offline drivers would be yellow. So if you're a dispatcher using the dispatcher app, you need to contact the off shift, the yellow drivers, so the offline drivers. So if I click on the driver, I know who she is, and I can know if I need to contact her or not. If she's offline, I should probably contact her. So we will end here, and I would be happy to open this for questions. Let's see your questions. Right, so we have a few questions already. So one of the questions is ETL estimated time to leave? And yes, the answer is yes, I didn't stop on that. So basically, we assume that a driver stays 5 minutes at the restaurant, but this is configurable, so if you need something else, we can configure it for you. And basically, it means that 5 minutes after the driver should arrive, that's when he or she should leave. Another question is, why is ETA never showing? So I think in this case the ETA wasn't showing because the driver, we didn't get the driver's location properly, but usually ETA should show, again, depending on the driver's location. There is another question here. One second. So there is another question here, and that's an important point, actually, and an interesting feature. So Sev says that he has noticed previously that arrival to location and leaving location was automatically done, and the driver didn't need to tap on that. So yeah, that's possible, and it's up to the settings you choose. So on the settings under driver app, you can set up what we call hands-free mode. So I'll show it for a second. Again, this is only for admins, but if you don't have access to the settings, you can ask your admins to set this up. So you can see right here, hands-free mode. And that means the driver doesn't need to click through the entire process. He just needs to click start. And according to the location, we will say, when he arrived and when he left. So we have a question about pricing. What's the price per driver, or is it a monthly payment only? So our pricing is a monthly package. You can see it on our website. You can just go to bringg.com/pricing. Basically, we start with $150 for a capacity of up to 500. And the more volume you need, the less you pay per order, per task. So the full details will be available on the website, but the pricing is monthly. So another question we have here is about the customer map view, the customer tracking link, whether it can be white label and remove the Bringg logo. So the tracking URL, so the tracking map, it looks a little different than what you saw right now on the demo. So we saw it here, if you remember. So it looks a little bit different, and basically what it has is your logo up here. It will have your colors branded for the top row and also for the buttons. The design is a little different from here. And here it doesn't have Bringg, but it has a watermark of powered by Bringg. And this cannot be removed, just like we cannot remove Google Maps mark from our map on the dashboard. So it's part of user rights. Another question we have, whether driver app can be branded, so whether driver app can be white labeled. So at the moment, no, but in the future we will have SDK for the driver app. So if you are interested in implementing the features from the driver app into an app that you developed, that's absolutely fine. Since we do not have an option to brand or customize the driver app, what we did do is minimize the branding on the driver app at all. So if you take a look at the driver app, it doesn't say Bringg anywhere. It's very, very mildly branded. So since we know, if I take a look here, it's pretty neutral, let's say. Since we know it can't be branded and we know different drivers use it for different purposes, we kept branding to a minimum. If there are any other questions, please feel free to type them into the question box. And of course, if you have any questions after we end this webinar, you can always email us at support@bringg.com. So let's see if we have any last questions. Great. So we will end here. Thank you very much for attending, and hope to see you in our next webinar. Thanks.